and or scripted content onto YouTube. Nothing I do is really scripted. Like all of these videos I do where I'm like talking to my camera and pretending there's people in my chat this early, all of this is 100% unscripted, right? Unlike, let me go ahead and put that on screen. Unlike what happens in something like patching in video games. If you don't understand what a patch is, if you don't know what I mean by that, I mean like balance changes or an update, right? So if you're like super casual at video games in general and you don't know what a patch is, right? You don't read patch notes, you never heard of a patch, you just say, oh, Apex Legends updated. Cool, I wonder what the new changes are. Or, oh, Apex Legends updated. Big update, I wonder if there's a new map, right? That's a patch. And patching is extremely normal in this generation of video games, right? We don't live in the dark ages of video games where everything was stuck on a fucking disc, right? A disc. Right? And when you want to get new content, you have to buy a new disc, right? So back in the arcade days, I can think as far back as like Mortal Kombat 1. There was four revisions of Mortal Kombat 1. Four revisions of Mortal Kombat 1. The first two were just to remove touch of deaths from the game off jump kicks and crazy shit like that. Off like jump kicks and down twos, right? Or I should say uppercuts. Oops. Mortal Kombat 3, right? A little more nuanced system, a system that I'm sure all of you know now today, which is the upgrade treatment, right? Where they had Mortal Kombat 3, and then after Mortal Kombat 3, they had Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. Or you could even say something along the lines of Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition, Super Turbo, you know, all of those different kinds of Street Fighter 2. We don't do that anymore for the most part. Like, companies still release Ultimate or Ultra or Super or Championship Edition versions of their game, but it's usually just like the newest version of the game patched onto the disc with all the DLC, right? So if I'd got Ultimate Mortal Kombat 11 instead of Mortal Kombat 11 in this super snazzy case, by the way, only reason why I bought this. Yes, the game is in there. I do own Mortal Kombat 11. Oh, maybe it's in my PS4. I don't know. Anyways, so instead of doing that now, they just put all the DLC onto a disc. But all the changes that happen in the form of patches or updates, and those updates change the game. Sometimes only slightly, and sometimes super dramatically, and sometimes frequently, sometimes very infrequently, right? And a giant patch just happened in Guilty Gear Strive. The game's been out about 3 to 4 months. Maybe it's been 4 months already, right? Been out about 4 months. And it's, hey, what's up, Moonspire? And it's a significantly different game than it was 4 months ago. Not even just because of the 2 patches that happened, but because of the overall sweeping changes to a lot of the mechanics in the game. 6Ps, faultless defense, IB. I don't even know if IB changed, I'm not sure. Throw clashes, things like that. The reversal timing, things like that. Coupled with the character changes are big sweeping changes, and a lot of fighting game players aren't used to big sweeping changes like that, right? A lot of fighting game players, if you didn't start with this generation of fighting games, if you were disgruntled or gave up on fighting games during the PS2 era, PS3 era, arcade era, and are now coming back, you're like, whoa, patches, what the fuck is this, right? Of course, hopefully you can understand it because other genres have patches way more frequently, but in the FGC, it's a little more divisive. It's a topic that people are scared of. Some people don't like how games are patched frequently, and other people don't think games are patched frequently enough. Before Soul Calibur 6 stopped having an active developer base, which it no longer does, there was, I think, 9 patches in total over the course of 2 years. Some, like people that played Soul Calibur 5, considered that too many. They were like, no, this game's getting patched way too frequently. What the fuck? Like, let us learn the game. It's hard to hone when things are being changed constantly. And others are like, holy crap, we need big sweeping changes because this game sucks. These characters are way too broken. Put them in line with the rest of the cast. Plot twist, the entire cast is busted. That's not really an argument that I think it should have ever been had. I think the sweeping changes that happened in the game were usually for the better. I think the game's in a lot better spot than it was in Season 1 and even in the beginning of Season 2 for the most part, right? But so that divide is something that is not really common in other games, right? MOBA players, BR players, shooting game players, card game players, they're used to these giant sweeping changes. As a matter of fact, I can name another community that embraces those giant sweeping changes every 6 months, every 4 months. Call it ban list season. The Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game, the competitive players are excited for the new ban list every year. Even when the format is totally healthy, it's like a 5-deck format, 4-deck format, 8-deck format. You know, there's so many topping tournament choices. Even in situations like that, they're like, hey, the 2 best decks, they gotta go. They gotta be nerfed. Put them down. Take them out back, like George. You know, take them out, right? So that's not something that fighting game players are used to. At least not a lot of older ones. I think that patches are usually for the betterment of the game. I think that there's like a sweet spot of how often you should patch. I think that games like Killer Instinct, which I think patched like every other week, every other week or every month while the game was still in development. Maybe it was every week. So let's take the middle of that. Let's take every 2 weeks, because it may have been every 2 weeks. Even though some of the changes weren't very sweeping, they changed the game every 2 weeks. Now imagine if they stopped doing that a year into the game's life and they started doing it every 2 months, every 3 months. The existing player base that was cool with every 2 week patches would be fucking furious. And new players who want to hone the fucking game and actually learn things will be excited. It's like, wow, we have more time to learn this patch. Whenever games are patched really frequently, you have to usually pick something that's very good and very simple. Because picking something that's very good but takes a long time to learn is actually a risk. Because by the time you learn it, that thing could be either better or worse. Usually, it's gonna be worse. That's just like the general rule of thumb, that if something's really strong and the devs know it's strong, even if it hasn't gotten to see play yet, it might get limited or removed in some sense. I think that in the FGC, patching is like, it's a tough topic, and it always will be. I think that we're just not used to giant sweeping changes for a lot of games. Like even games that were said to be patched frequently, like Mortal Kombat X, had a patch every 2 or 3 months. And people were like, this is a lot of changes. But up until MKXL, the changes weren't usually too sweeping. They were character changes to kind of tone down characters, buff characters, fix little holes in gameplay here, bugs, you know, general fixes. Guilty Gear has had 2 pretty crazy patches in the past 2 months. Melty hasn't had one yet, which I think is an interesting story to tell. And I say the same for Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl, right? These are all 3 relatively new games. Nick All-Stars Brawl already had 1 patch, but that's because when it came out, it was in an absolutely busted state. And it still is, I think, currently, until another patch comes out. Michelangelo is just banned. That's the guy I wanted to main. That feels bad. When I was playing him, I thought he sucked, and then people showed me first time chatter. Halloween event on RuneScape 3 right now. Don't miss out. I'll be on Thursday and Friday. Hell yeah. That sounds godlike. Thanks for letting me know. See, even a game like any game that's not fighting games, patches are super normal. Look at that. There's a Halloween event going on in RuneScape 3 right now. Luckily, that's not like a giant sweeping like combat change or something like that. That does remove players from games. It's something that people neglect to like realize. Oh, of course, I'll go look at it maybe after stream. New cosmetics. I rarely fuck with cosmetics. I don't feel like putting money into the game besides a membership. But yeah, I'll take a look. Thanks for letting me know. I think that if we lived in the olden days of non-patching games or patches via disc by a new $40 expansion or a new $30 expansion coming out, fighting games would be a lot worse off for it, right? You pay that initial $60 and you hope that those patches are going to make the game better over time, and most of the time they do, right? Especially in the case of a game like Soul Calibur 6 or Mortal Kombat X, Justice 2. Guilty Gear Strive is looking better. I won't say that I like the game a lot, but it's looking better than it looked previously. And I hope that, oh, and Granblue Versus is a totally different game, but a lot better game than it was when it launched, right? And these are just all modern examples. These aren't older examples of games that used to still have patches. I think that it's something that in the new era of video games, we're just gonna have to embrace as fighting game players. You can't really like run away from patches. It's kind of impossible. It's gonna be hard to find a modern fighting game that's not gonna go through patching. You just got to find a game and a dev that's going to make sure that the patches are either aren't sweeping the way you want them to be or are just as sweeping as you want them to be, and as frequent or infrequent as you want them to be. Every game in this generation is not going to be for every player. It's just not. Street Fighter and Dragon Ball FighterZ have patches once to twice a year. Tekken has patches, at least until it's gone, usually once to twice a year. Right? That's relatively normal. Guilty Gear has already had 2 patches in 4 months. And if we get another character in the start of the year, start of 2022, I'm almost certain we're getting another patch to coincide with said character. Patches are here, and they're not going anywhere. If mobile players can get used to one patch every week, every 2 weeks, shooting game players can get used to a new patch every couple of weeks, I think us as fighting game players can also get used to it. I think the main thing is it hampers the growth of a game at its highest level. But we are the minority and we don't matter. They don't give a fuck about us. We don't make for sales. We're like the 10%, max 10% of the entire player base of a game, usually, right? Unless the game is boiled down to nothingness and it's all competitive players, but that's really rare. Especially like when a game just comes out and it's fresh. There's so many like fresh blood that's playing the game that's totally new or casual at the game and will never want to see an Evo main stage or a combo breaker main stage or even attend a tournament, even a locals in their life. They just want to dip their feet into it, play for a little bit, have fun, maybe experience some single player content, a little bit of online, and never come back to it. And a lot of the quality of life changes are for those players. They're not for us all the time. They're not always for us. I think that's something that we got to keep in mind. Anyways, if you're watching this on YouTube, hey, this was recorded live on Twitch. Come watch on Twitch instead of watching on YouTube. It'd be way cooler. I see that my talk segments on YouTube get way more views than my actual fighting game stuff. So maybe just tune in for like the first 30 minutes of my stream and then head out if you got to. Otherwise, stick around because, you know, we're always doing fighting game stuff or some RuneScape. Being Thuggish signing out. Peace.